In order to get this video out as quickly as possible, editing has been reduced.
So, for viewers that haven't watched a green screen before, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Weston Vaughn. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a Christian, and I am a YouTuber who makes dumb videos. Before that, I was a missionary. I was a carpet cleaner in Missouri, and I was part of a church founding group. We founded a church with my wife's in-laws, and yes, this is just kind of what we've been doing.
So tell me about your experiences in DC. What did you see?
Sure. So in DC, things were, when I first got there, I had gone to Bethesda to get onto a metro into DC. So I didn't drive into DC like a lot of these people did. I don't know how a lot of people got in where they got hotels and stuff. And when I got on the metro, I thought to myself, you know, this is a pretty filled up cart. There are quite a few people in here. I wonder how many people are getting off in DC to go to the protest. And when we did get to that stop, you can see this clip right here. I'll show it at this time. So this is the stop where all the Trump supporters are getting off. Let's see what happens.
This is your red line train to Glenmont. The next stop is Gallery Place, Chinatown.
Everybody got off the cart. Almost everybody, except for the people who were getting on the cart to go somewhere else. Everybody got off the cart to go to DC and go to this protest. And when I was there, I had nobody knew where they were going or what they were doing. They just kind of like walked out because there wasn't a whole lot of information. There were other groups that I guess were organizing to give their people more information. People were busting, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. And we're just trying to figure out, you know, where do we go? What do we do? I met this guy named Daniel outside the metro, and we paired up. We just said, hey, why don't we stick together so that we can, until we figure out what the heck is going on. And so we paired up together.
So you made a friend.
Yeah, I made a friend. He's a nice guy. We talked a lot just about like, not too much politics, you know, about the actual political, just about like values, about Christianity, about Catholicism, because he's a Catholic, about, you know, just the things that we saw at the time, you know, just marveling at some of the things that we're seeing as we're walking around. Both of us just kind of, hey, you know, oh, hey, look, there's the National Guard. And as far as my experience goes, there wasn't a whole lot of authoritative people on the police related to the police force. It was just like the National Guard. Like, I saw National Guards people when I got off the metro, but, you know, they're just, like, they're not looking at us, they're just talking to each other, you know, like, just like, oh, you know, we got to be here, so we're just going to stand around and chit-chat. You know, they were still wearing masks, but you could tell they're just, you know, hanging out and waiting for stuff.
So were you there for Donald Trump's speech at the Ellipse?
Yeah, well, I was there. I was also there to protest. That was the thing I really wanted to do, was to go and protest at the Capitol, because I wanted to hold these people accountable for all this stuff that everybody else is worried about. People have not been given a voice in this election, where every single one of these court cases come up. With a few that go through, none of them were tossed out on merit. They were all tossed out on procedural grounds. So either and being procedural grounds, I mean, the margin to actually be within a procedural hearing is very, very small, if non-existent at all. And we're talking about, you know, well, if you want to sue, then you have to have injury. So, you know, we have to see some results from the election, or we have to see the crimes going down.
So it's kind of a catch-22. You can't do it before or after.
Exactly. And if you try to do it afterwards, it's like, oh, well, it's too late, you know. We can't do anything. It's after. So nobody has been given the justice from the system, and that's what people were really, that's what I was out there to protest. I wasn't necessarily out there to support Trump. You know, it's just, you know, if Trump is the victor in this scenario, and Trump is also saying this sentiment to people, I mean, I support those ideas. I support this accountability. We support this transparency. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to protest at the Capitol for that. So that's the big reason I was there. But back to what we were doing. Once we had, you know, Trump supporters, they just, when we're trying to figure out where to go, all the Trump supporters are walking on the sidewalks, even though all the roads are closed. There's no cars, there's nothing moving around in the area. But, you know, they're all using the sidewalks because they just can't. They're not those kind of people. They're not the kind of people who feel so free to where they can just walk in the middle of the road like a bunch of other people.
So you didn't see any looting of businesses or?
Oh God, no! No, there was nothing like that. If anything, people were just trying to find a place to use the bathroom because there were basically no porta potties anywhere except for I imagine in like where Trump was at. But people who needed to use the bathroom were kind of out of luck. So if anything, people were looking for a place to pee and poop. But other than that, there were street vendors and stuff. There were people who were trying to sell hats and T-shirts. People who were trying to sell food. People who were playing music who were trying to show support for Trump, but also maybe get a tip or two. Maybe take some selfies at the time with people. Just kind of engage the community in that way. This particular community. And, there are also people who were out there with political messaging. There were people out there who were preaching, literally the Word of God out there and, trying to prophesy in those moments. There are people out there with grotesque abortion signs and being against abortion and all the stuff that Congress and the rest of the country allows to happen, the murder of children. There are people from other countries, Iranians for Trump, Chinese for Trump, Koreans for Trump, all these people there because they were so concerned about what happens in America because America is the example that gives them a voice. When they're in their countries and they try to protest, they're shut down. A lot of times they're imprisoned, killed. Who knows what happens to these people? And the shining city on a hill is the United States, and if they feel that freedom is going away in the United States, then what freedom opportunities do they have anywhere else? Who can they turn to? They have nobody else to turn to. To continue, once we got to the Washington Monument, we hadn't actually figured out where Trump was at that time. We didn't know he was at the Ellipse. We just saw like a big crowd of people at that point. We're like, okay, so this is pretty close, I imagine, to where we're supposed to be. We went to explore a little bit more. Just because, okay, well, nothing's really happening. We're just going to go, let's go walk down Constitution Lane to see what's going on. And we ran into some people who gave us information. There was a nice group of people who came on a bus, some guy who had never been to D.C. but had a whole bunch of maps of it, and explaining, okay, so this is what's going to happen. They're going to do this at 12 o'clock. Trump's going to give his speech, and around 1 o'clock is when they're going to do the protest. And so it felt pretty organized at that point. We're thinking, okay, so all we got to do is go... listen to Trump, and around 1 o'clock, people are going to march down for the protest. Mm-hmm. And so, we decide, okay, well, let's go back and wait to see what happens with Trump. There are funny people all along the way. We continue to talk about, the constitutionality, about figures who are good in news, figures who are bad, who do we listen to, how do we get our information. And we eventually got to the point where we were where Trump was going to speak. And while we're sitting there, the audio wasn't that great out there. We couldn't reach, the sound system definitely couldn't provide enough juice to reach
because
where we were.
Because the crowd was so massive.
Yeah, it was just so huge, and he was, at the Ellipse in front of the White House, and we were in between the Ellipse lawn and the Washington Monument. And there are people up in trees, trying to hear what's going on. Nobody has cell service. Cell service just wasn't working that day, or just because there are so many people trying to access cell service at the same time, mm-hmm. Nobody could actually even pull up a live stream of what was going on, or what Trump was saying. So we just kind of picked out words, or maybe somebody he said this, blah 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 blah. He said bullshit, all that kind of stuff.
I imagine at the event in general that caused a lot of confusion.
I mean, yeah, because there's just a huge lack of leadership. People don't know what to do and what's going on. And at a certain point, we just look behind us, and there are a bunch of people who are headed down Constitution Lane, headed to the court, or headed to the Capitol building. Yeah. And me and Daniel look at each other. And I guess we really want to go to this protest. We really want to protest the government for what they're doing to us right now, and for the lack of accountability that we have, and for their negligence of the flyover country, for calling us horrible things in the media over and over again. And all the people I saw were really nice people. No violence in the streets. Let me go ahead and just get on a little bit of a rabbit trail real quick. Remind me that I'm talking about going to the Constitution Place when I'm done.
Okay.
Going
to the Capitol.
Yeah, going to the Capitol when I'm done. For people who are calling these riots are absolutely wrong. That is not the right thing to call this by any means. I'll tell you what to call in a second. But riots what that looks like is a big upset in a community, and people run around and smash windows of cars. They go and hit the streets. They just cause a bunch of unrest out of nowhere. They cause, there's no expectation for it. There's no announcement that people are going to protest. It's just everybody's going out there and they're just tearing stuff up. They're hitting the streets. They're attacking people in the streets. They're attacking businesses. They're looting businesses, much like you saw when BLM and all that stuff was happening in the middle of the year. That's the kind of thing that that's what a riot is. This was not a riot. If you're talking about, if anything, this was an attack. There was no attack outside of the Capitol building. Any property that was damaged was there. Maybe there's some trash here and there, but other than that, like, no big deal. No businesses being attacked, nothing like that. So just to clarify that is a huge mistake people are calling this. They're calling it a riot. This was people attacking who they viewed as their oppressors. The people who have been locking them down in their homes. The people who have took their jobs away because they won't let them go to work. The people who are about to make the entire country run like California. People who are going to take away their freedom of religion, their freedom of speech, their freedom to leave their house, and big tech and all this other stuff. All these people censoring your ability to speak on those platforms. Who can you even speak to if you're locked down in your house? Can you even speak to your neighbor? Will you be able to call people on the phone? This is the sentiment people are feeling. They're feeling terrified that this country is, their baby, and they're trying to protect it. I've been telling some people as of late, it's like Mama Bear, and Mama Bear is trying to protect her cub here. And these people have been getting poked for a long time, and now they're ready to explode, if you will.
So what happened when you arrived at the Capitol?
Oh yeah, well first we walked to the Capitol. Daniel was trying to find a place to pee. He'd forgotten to pee earlier, and we just walked down there. And when I was walking to the Capitol, once I saw the Capitol building, I felt this really this strong sense of unease. The kind that it feels like where, there's a bear trap around here somewhere and I could step in it. That kind of sense where it really felt like we were walking into a trap. Because, let me go ahead and give some context here. There are a ton of people, I guess, who left the speech early to just go ahead over to the protest. And for a lot of people, there's a lot of people there, like hundreds and thousands. And when I got up to the Capitol building, as on the sidewalks and the grass and all that stuff, there was nobody there. There were no police officers. There was nobody. Now, if you're really set on protecting all these senators and all these Congress people and Mike Pence and all these people, the line needs to be clearly established well before they get there. And for all we know, there was no line established. There sure as heck were no cops standing in front to tell people, okay, this is the line you can't cross, okay? I think there might have been like some barricades up there, but if you're not the first people there and people just they literally you can pick those barricades up and just walk away with them, people never know they're there. There's no spray on the line that says do not cross this line. There's no signs, and there sure as heck are no police officers who, by the way, are probably just all in the streets or back at the metro station or wherever the heck.
There's nobody with a megaphone.
No, there is no information being dealt to these people. And when I walked into that part, when I walked up to the Congress, walked onto the Congress, I guess would be the Congress Plaza or the property, I remember thinking to myself, this is a trap. This feels like a trap. This feels like we're walking into trouble. And because it was just too easy. I got a video here of the second, now this is where police came up. They had just striped shirts, they were masked, so you can't, when you've got a crowd that size, you cannot hear people telling you orders through a mask. You just can't hear them, even if you're trying to listen to them, because there's so much talking, there's so much movement. There are people hitting their flags on the ground, making a drum beat sound. There's so much going on. And if you're trying to yell at people through a mask, what was I saying? You have no idea what I was saying. What orders are there? Like, maybe you can just kind of, maybe there's some context clues you can use for sure. Like, hey, don't cross this part. But watch this video here. As you can see, when they drop the first barricade, the police don't even try to stop people. Definitely no hands on anybody. They just walk back. And at that point, and imagine if you're coming up like 5 minutes after this happened, you can't see any of that stuff going down. You're thinking, oh, we can stand. They're letting us stand on the grass to protest. How nice of Congress. How nice of everybody to let us stand in the grass. How nice of them to let us protest here on the rotunda. Because at a certain point, that's when they decide to bring out the people in riot gear, which they clearly had. Obviously. These people were well dressed well ahead of time. And why didn't you walk these guys out earlier? Like, how did we know what lines were being crossed? And it felt like, we were given this opportunity to just walk right up to the rotunda. And then it was clear, okay, these are the people in riot gear. That guy has something that looks like an SMG. It's rubber bullets, by the way. That's what they had. They didn't even have like a megaphone or anything to talk to us. At a certain point, a police officer tried to ask for one, but they eventually, it took them so long. I imagine we were there for 2 hours before they got any kind of loudspeaker device to try to talk. And if you were...
So you're protesting for 2 hours with no communication.
No communication from the police. And like I said, they're all masked up, so you can't even see what they're saying. There are a few who weren't masked up because they had taken them off. But they weren't talking to people. They were just waiting for orders from the captain or whatever.
Was it during those 2 hours that people breached the Capitol?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was during those 2 hours that... I can't honestly... I wasn't super cognizant of the time that was going on. But I'll tell you, once they had broken down that second barricade, people walked up, and the people up at the front, you could tell, a lot, there were women, there were old men, the people were just like, what are we doing? Where are we going from here? What happens now? And all the people coming in behind have no idea. They're just like, oh, cool, we can just walk up to the rotunda. Amazing. That's awfully nice of Congress to give us the opportunity to protest. Thank you, Congress. And the police, they've got their riot shields. They got little kids. They look like they're so short, these people. Women, they got 5 or 10 women basically at the front line. There's not a whole lot of cops. It's not a massive force. They sure as heck are not stacked on each other. Uh-huh. It's one person and another person on the shoulder. There's no other police officer behind them.
Line.
Their force is so small. You don't need a whole lot to overtake them in that case.
Let me pause
really
right
easy for them.
Why would that be the case? This was a planned protest.
This is why I feel like this was a trap, because it's why were you not more prepared for these people? Or why did you not show up? Where were you people when this happened? And obviously, I watched Dave Rubin a little bit today, and he played these videos that I couldn't see because when they had actually broken through the rotunda perimeter, which was this part where it was clearly established, this is where they didn't want us to cross. When they had, it wasn't clear to everybody, just the people who could see it. And like I said, they didn't have any loud communication devices there. There was one, but if you were back even 10 rows of people, you couldn't hear. Because there were megaphones that the Trump supporters had, and they were yelling stuff, so you couldn't tell if it was the police or who it was. And it just wasn't loud. There wasn't any way for the police to communicate.
Clarity.
Exactly. There was no way the police were communicating to the Trump supporters, what they wanted and how they wanted to proceed. There was some kid who walked up, and you'll see this in that video earlier, where he's just yelling, "Get that back! Get that back!" He's in riot gear, just trying to act tough and stuff. He's walking in front of all the women in riot gear, just like, "Hey, in space," just being a tough guy. And and at a certain point, people are looking up and they're seeing this woman who is in police gear, but she doesn't have a mask on. She's just, you can actually see her mouth moving, and she's yelling, she's got this Rambo-esque face when she's shooting at people, but before there's anything else that happens, Trump supporters are kind of just...
Let's pause right there for our viewers. Shooting at people, what does that mean?
Yeah, she's shooting at people with rubber bullets, so... Not spray and pray like this, but it seems like she's targeted somebody, but when you've been with this community, you've talked to all the people who you saw out there, you feel like they're all friendlies, they're all family, they're all nice. There are some people who are rowdier, and you're like, keep away from you, but, the people who weren't, you're just They could be shooting a grandma over there. There's an old lady standing next to me right now. How do I know that's not what they're shooting over there? Hey, what are you doing? Stop shooting at us. We mean you no harm. Like, that's the kind of sentiment that's coming out from people. And then you hear, people start chucking water bottles at her after about like 5 minutes of unprovoked shooting. Unprovoked in the sense that
from where you were standing, because you can't see.
Nobody was attacking the police at that time, and they're shooting at people with riot stuff and with the rubber bullets off the top of the rotunda. And it's interesting to me that like the building is set up in a way to where it's like everybody can see this woman shooting at people if you're up there. So it's like, but I have not heard the police talk about that. I haven't heard that in the news. I haven't heard people talk about how this whole thing started, how they broke this perimeter that was much clearer to people who were up front on the rotunda. Like, it was so difficult for communication to happen, and if there's something to slight Trump for, it is, where the heck were you when we needed leadership? Like, we don't know what was going on. We're relying on people who we don't know. People, just whoever has the biggest megaphone is who you can listen to. There are people who are going to want to go beyond. They want to go to Congress. They want to jump the gun. They want to do that. There are definitely people there who want to do that. That's not most people who are there. Most people who are there are grandmas and grandpas and, men with daughters and wives and little, 16-year-olds. I talked to a 16-year-old that was up there. She was with her dad. I mean, there are just a bunch of people who really were just there to protest, and there's so little communication what's going on. And what do you hear from the news right now? You're hearing everybody there was a rioter. Some people need to be thrown in jail forever. Lock the key away. Expel them from the United States. And it's like, yeah, right. There are a lot of people who are there just thinking, okay, I can just walk up because where's the limitation? And at a certain point, people are climbing up the scaffolding. They're tearing up the scaffolding. Not the structure, but they have like this white covering over it, and they're tearing off the scaffolding so that people can see everybody who's underneath the scaffolding just to show their numbers. It's kind of like a flaunting our power sort of thing, I imagine. It could be. I don't really know. But between that, that's when the Trump supporters, after they were getting shot, they started, being a little bit more aggressive. Not so much where they were hitting cops, but, they were starting to direct their ire at the cops themselves. And then they started throwing these concussion bombs at us. They're exploding. I'm singing the national anthem with my hands up because I don't want to get shot. And, concussion grenades. By the way, a lot of people have been saying like fireworks are being shot off, and presumably by Trump supporters. It was this. This is a concussion grenade shell. These are thrown mostly just to disperse people, to scare them into running away. Like, oh, we need to get out of here. The police are getting serious with us. And it's like, okay, look, there's way more people here. Just to be honest, like, if everybody here even just pushed at the same time, I mean, you could easily overtake these people. So like, and there are people who knew that. So they were like, no, stay. This isn't a big deal. And after a while, you just get used to these things blowing up in your ear. Police started macing people in the face. Like, they had this like white stuff. It looked like a cream almost that they were spraying in people's face. It was also orange colored. They were throwing tear gas at us. People were coughing. There was an old man who was next to me who had one of these, literally next to me when it happened. It blew up in the air, and I guess one of these pieces flew and hit him in the back, and it blew a hole through his shirt. And he just hit the ground, and we were like, oh my gosh, you guys just literally hurt this old man. And the thing is, like, you can demonize the police because underneath those masks, you have no idea what they're thinking. You can't see their attitudes, but these guys are scared out of their minds. They know they are well overwhelmed in numbers here, and it's like, why and the National Guard isn't here yet? Like, we saw them earlier, and are they still twiddling their thumbs in these parking lots and parking garages doing nothing?
So, from what I've gathered from you, it sounds like one of two cases. Either this was a setup, or people were just incredibly unprepared. I mean,
I tend to fall on the side of less maliciousness on those kinds of questions, because it's like, I can't prove whether it was a setup, but like, if it was announced, if even the threat, like, what do they do when there's a bomb threat at a school? Like, police cars everywhere. You maybe you even see some National Guard members, who show up on scene. They escort all the kids out. Like, it's pretty. You're supposed to be protecting 100 senators and over 300 some odd members of Congress and the Vice President of the United States. If a lot of those people died, we would have no leadership in the United States. And what do you pull out in front of us? 20 riot up women standing. There's no, like, overwhelming force unavailable, okay? And maybe you want to use COVID as an excuse, but if you do,
so they had them in town but did not call them. At least
yeah,
not
definitely
for hours.
not for a long time, as far as I could tell. So from where we were standing, it was like, what's going on? And then at a certain point, there was a guy, and I watched this happen right in front of me because I was on the front lines for a little bit. I got maced in the face, I got tear gassed, I got all these concussion grenades blowing up around me. I never got shot with any rubber bullets, fortunately for me, but you know, all this stuff was happening at the time, and you know, I literally couldn't see for a while. Like, I was just standing there with my hands up for like 10 minutes, and then somebody finally grabbed me and pulled me back and poured water in my eyes so, you know, I could see again. And what I saw was there was this guy, I guess, who decided he wanted to just walk beyond the perimeter, and a bunch of the police officers in riot gear grabbed him, pulled him. They're scared out of their minds, by the way, the police, because how? Like, and by the way, in the media, you've been told these people are demons, these people hate your country, all this other, like, whatever else they want, whatever other kind of propaganda they want to say about these kinds of people.
About the police or the Trump supporters?
The Trump supporters. And so the police are like, well, we don't know what these people are going to do to us. We don't know if they're armed. We have no idea what's going on. And what have they given us? Riot gear, some rubber bullets, a couple shields, and about 10, like 20, 30, maybe 40 people to battle what could be literally hundreds of thousands. Like, yeah, right. So it's just too easy for us to move forward, and then there's this guy who gets pulled in, and they just start beating him with batons, like, hit him in the head multiple times, and when there's nobody to say, can we have some peace, can we settle these tensions down, and you're watching this older fella be beat over the head, and you view him as somebody who is like a family member to you, are you just going to sit there and watch it happen? Are you going to sit here and let him be beaten and just say, well, orders are orders, guys, so let him beat him? No. And that's what happened. At that point, people decided, screw it, we're pushing on them. Somebody yelled 1, 2, 3, push, and everybody just ran at the police. They were like, no, we're done. This isn't happening. You can't beat this guy in front of us. And they pushed through, and then the police fell back. They didn't run over the police, they just pushed them backwards, and they decided they retreated back up into the building and the upper floors, and you know, people started like, yeah, we beat it. So there were people who were like, yeah, oh, so it's like, you know, oh, we won, but it's like, wait, that's not the sentiment that pushed everybody forward, was you getting up there and taking your shirt off and flipping it and, you know, oh, that's not what got people to move. What got people to move was watching this guy be hit in front of him. And obviously, a lot of people can't see it happen, okay? And at that point, I was actually pulled a little bit further back, so if you wanted to get further ahead, it was impossible. And whatever was going up above the rotunda, like, we couldn't see. I saw a video on Dave Rubin today where they were showing that up where I couldn't see, because I was further down, there was a huge wall there, I couldn't see what was going on beyond it. And at that point, I just started talking to people around me, seeing what they were thinking. But it was showing the people who were breaking the glass on the windows. And when they saw people breaking glass, there were Trump supporters who got up to that person's face, started yelling, "What the F are you doing? What the F are you doing? Stop it!" And there was one dude who, when he was doing one of the other windows, they were all dressed in black, by the way. A lot of people were yelling they're Antifa, they're booing at these people in that video.
So, do you think they were Antifa, or do you think they were Trump supporters dressed in black?
It could be either or. Like, honestly, we won't know, I guess, until there's an investigation, which, well, can you trust any investigations at this point? Like, can you?
So, basically, we'll never know.
I guess we'll never really know. They're going to say Trump supporters without a doubt, but when you look at it, you know, people are going to think, well, it could have been Antifa, but how do we know? We don't, how would we ever find out? What kind of investigation are we going to get that we can trust? But what we did see was those people be pulled back and tackled by Trump supporters to stop breaking the windows, because they didn't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. What happened inside the building, I was not a witness to. I honestly couldn't see it. The highest that I ever got up to was probably around almost 4 o'clock-ish. I was able to get up to the spot where that chick was shooting us from, the police officer was shooting us from. And then at that point, you know, I looked beyond, I could see people who were there. I guess there were police in the doors. They were barricading or trying to keep people from getting out. And I guess I had just seen a part where they had pushed beyond the doors, and at that point is when I left. I was like, okay, well, and also I had gotten information that Congress had left and everything. It's like, okay, there's no point for us to be here anymore. And even if there was, like, what is this anymore? I'm just leaving. And so I got up and left, and I got plenty of footage from that point too. You know, I'll show a couple of things here and there where you guys can see footage that I had taken about what the sizes looked like and that sort of stuff. I mean, it was just a huge mess, and no leadership. No leadership to tell you what to do. No leadership from the police giving people information about what they wanted to do. If you're thinking like a bake heist scene where they're like giving, here are demands of this is what we want, and they're like, okay, well we can't do that. Maybe we can bring you a Subway sandwich. Like, there's nothing like that happening. Nothing like that is happening from the police's end. And what are we supposed to think? Like, how are... And a lot of these people are just saying, oh, you know, I'm from Texas. You know, I got 7 sons and four daughters, and, you know, we're just kind of up here because they're trying to take our freedoms away, and we don't really like it. Anyway, how are you doing? You know, just like casual conversation. You know, I had a battery pack on my phone charger. I let some people charge their phones on me because they were worried about not being able to get home. So it's like, you know, these people, a lot of these people are just kind of standing there thinking that, well, what barricades? Like, was there a barricade here at some point? I didn't know that. Like, I felt like we all moved forward at some point, but, well, okay. Like, a lot of these people had no idea that if they were trespassing, that's what was going on. They couldn't even tell. I really feel like there was a lot of people who were like that. And when it comes to the girl who got shot and killed in the neck, like, she got shot in the neck, I guess, I imagine with a rubber bullet. I can't imagine having with a real gun. She was climbing through windows, what I've heard.
It may have been. It was inside the building, so the security inside could have easily had bullets.
I mean, but, you know, these guys are scared out of their minds. Like, you can say, listen, let me give you a little something here. When I was there's a staircase that leads up to the second rotunda, but in between that staircase and the second rotunda is a door, and I guess it leads to like a cellar or something, and you could hear police barricaded in there, and there was this dude who was losing it next to me, and he was trying to kick the door down. Me and another guy were trying to stop him from kicking he's a huge dude though, like he was like 6'4" or something, he was a big guy. And he was screaming, "We're coming after you, motherfucker!" And we were like, "That's not what we're doing. We're not here to do that. We are not coming after the police." But this guy, you know, he just, you know, eventually he calmed down. And was like, okay. So it was like kind of like somebody who just got really riled up for a minute and then was like, well, I don't know. So it was kind of like a little awkward, you know, people getting caught up in the moment and stuff, and not to excuse them by any means, but it's still like, you know. Can I understand how you're getting to this place? Absolutely. I can understand how you got here. What you're hearing from conservative voices and right-wing voices who have major platforms, you know, over hundreds of thousands of viewers, millions of subscribers, so Daily Wire, these kinds of guys, you're just hearing total condemnation of everybody who was there. And it's like Trump told them to move, guys. Like, and these people are mother-bearing, you know, these things that matter to them, you know. And the police officers, they feel like the police officers were poking them, and they push forward. And they're high tensions. Like, how could you not communicate better to these people is the real question that I have. And, you know, maybe it took somebody like me who didn't stand up in the moment and say, wait a second, what are we doing here? Like, how do we communicate with each other? Is there any way where we can get some of what we want reasonably? Like, can we actually issue some demands and these police officers communicate with us? And I imagine there are people who were trying to communicate with police officers on a one-on-one basis, but there was no voice trying to tell the crowd how to act or how to behave. I mean, there was definitely a group feel of when people started throwing water bottles and they were throwing pieces of 2x4 in the police's direction, people screaming, "No! Stop! What are you doing?" And I'm one of those people too. This is not how you win the fight. You know, like if there's a fight to be had here, this is not how you win. And a lot of people have no idea that there is even real fighting going on. A lot of people are just sitting there's still people in like the grass areas in front of the part where like more of the aggressive part of the protest was happening. The people in the grass areas, and they're just listening to music. There's a guy who set up his speaker there. He's dressed up like Uncle Sam or whatever, and he's playing the guitar or ukulele and singing and stuff. And there are people just sitting out there on blankets like, la 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 la, you know, wow, it's such a good time. Wow, we're sitting on the Congress building. Hey, let me send a selfie. There are people up on the rafters who, like, if you were an Antifa member, you were trying to move people around, it must have been really infuriating trying to tell these people to move, because they're sitting out there taking pictures. I'm at the Congress! You know, it's just... There, and people, I remember like these people yelling, move that lady on the stairs. She's like some Chinese woman. She's like crying up there, like happily crying, like, I can't believe we're seeing our freedom. It's so beautiful. Oh, the big pictures, take the pictures. And everyone's like, no, we're trying to get up there. And she's like, oh, this is so wonderful. Look at all my friends here. Wow, this is amazing. And it's just like, wow. There's completely different objectives happening. Like, there are people there who are just, it's a holiday for them. For people, it's a protest. For people, it's an opportunity to attack people. Like, it's all over the motivations are all over the place. And to blanket this as a riot is completely misleading. Completely misleading. If anything, if you want to be as explicit as possible, you can say it was an attack on the Congress building. You cannot say it was an attack on all the surrounding buildings, on the streets, on the police who were just sit in the streets or whatever. And that had probably I imagine these National Guards people weren't even communicated with that well. And, I imagine they're having trouble getting service if they're just trying to look up stuff on their phones and take action into their own hands. They're sitting there waiting for orders, I imagine. And they're probably still in the parking lot just like, hey, you got any tens? Playing Go Fish or poker or whatever. And because they sure as heck didn't pull up. Yeah, there are cars and, we could see lights and stuff. But were these people walking up to the building to make their way through? No, they were just... Some of them were just standing next to their police cars outside the Congress building, not doing anything. So it's like... If this was a terrorist attack... and there was really somebody walking up with a bomb or whatever, everybody would be dead. Right now. Because you are not prepared to handle that kind of situation. It was, now granted, maybe from the outside there's some people in a space station with their super lasers or whatever, like, okay, there's a bomb flying through the air, we're gonna shoot the nuke in outer space. Maybe there's some crazy thing happening on that level, but on the front level, where people are on the ground, it is just pathetically underprepared, without a doubt. To say that it was a trap and they wanted to bait Trump supporters into doing this kind of thing, and people, there are people who are saying they were confirmed Antifa members and, they were escalating and stuff. I'm like, look, I the only thing I knew is that there were some Antifa who were being defended by the police. That's the only thing I saw. Other than that, as far as I can't prove whether there was Antifa presence there with any of my content. But, there were definitely people who their goal was to protest peacefully, and they just had no idea what boundaries they crossed. And there were people who were protesting with different intentions in mind, maybe to get into the Congress building. And as far as I could tell, nobody was equipped to kill anybody. But, I mean, and let's be fair. There are 4 deaths, okay?
3 medical emergencies. I've heard one was probably a fall from a great height.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, without a doubt, there are self-inflicted wounds on this. These people were standing on that scaffolding. They really packed it up.
Someone could have got
that scaffolding. I mean,
by accident.
That scaffolding could have collapsed with how many people were on it. They were on the poles on the outside and on the inside. It's it's a miracle. It's amazing that it didn't collapse. If it collapsed, that would have been a complete tragedy.
So, what would be your biggest encouragement for viewers who are watching this and trying to process it? What would be your thoughts that you would want to share with them?
Well, here's the thing, is to radicalize one way or the other that's just not a good idea right now. For all you people who are yelling at Trump, and for all you people who are yelling at Republicans who are raising these objections and saying we need, the left going crazy the way it is with this whole vengeance ceremony, when hey, this is your city and you are the ones who came really well unequipped to handle this situation, maybe even maliciously. Where are you? Did you want this tragedy to happen? Or call it a tragedy if you must, I suppose. But let's be honest, 4 people dead. You can count that up to 20 people in a BLM riot. Okay? That happens in one day. The Congress building wasn't set on fire. Yeah, there were personal belongings shifted through. Yeah, some kid took a picture in front of Pelosi's stand. Maybe even walked out with the stand from what I heard. But seriously? Like, this is the worst thing ever happened? And, oh, they're destroying our democracy. Yeah, maybe it was a pointed attack. But hey, at least they're not attacking business owners who had nothing to do with your oppression. These guys it is focused on the people who they believe are oppressing them. And to that degree, I think that's a little bit more admirable, but it doesn't mean that the measures they took were the most appropriate. And how they went about it. I don't think it was, like, at a certain point, what is the goal? Where's the leadership? Who's telling us what to do? How do we move? What are we doing that's of any use? And for all the people who are back there, I have no idea whether there's even anything going on. They're just standing there. Mm-hmm. I mean, if anything, this should change your perspective on a lot of people who do go and support these protests, even Antifa and BLM, those kinds of, BLM, or, these people who go out and march for their lives and this kind of, or all that stuff. I think if you are on the right, you can have a newfound respect for these people, because, I mean, granted the sizes aren't as big, but you can at least say, look, there are definitely people there who have no clue what the heck is going on. They just came out with hopes to, to fight for something that mattered to them, to stand up for a cause that was important to them, and for all they know, like stuff's blowing up, and they're like, oh, why did they do that? They're trying to hold people back. They're trying to stop people from ruining businesses and whatnot. First, it should give you that perspective. The next thing to say is what we've been saying for a long time. There's a sorting happening, and maybe this is the quote-unquote shot heard around the world, but as far as shots go, it's a very minor thing. And if tensions have been built up enough in the media where Joe Scarborough is going on swearing and screaming at Trump and Rudy Giuliani and Trump's son, like Don Jr., it's, what are you doing? How is that keeping the peace? How is that making things better? All you're doing is riling up the left and getting people more radicalized, trying to create more tensions, threatening things that people are scared of, like these truth and reconciliation ideas, where they're gonna reprogram your brain to think like a liberal, or you're pushing this stuff on people, and it's terrifying to them. And what do you like? That's malicious behavior. If there's any malicious behavior, the media, completely disgraceful. If you're a conservative and you're condemning this thing, but you're not providing any room of understanding for the protesters or the police officers who are involved in this ordeal, shame on you. Shame on you. Because you are painting with a broad brush, and it is disgraceful. It is absolutely disgraceful. What I see come out of the Daily Wire, what I see come out of Ted Cruz, what I see come out of Mitch McConnell, disgraceful. You should be damn ashamed of yourselves. You are not there. You cannot speak to what these people were feeling. You do not know what was going on. And you're causing chaos by doing what you're doing. You need to be honest. You need to have people who are there on the ground share their stories like it's going on here. And I could share about what more people were feeling in those moments, but for the record, most of these people have never protested in their entire lives. Like, these people lost their jobs. These people, there were people who were yelling, hey, Nancy Pelosi, I don't have a job anymore. I haven't been able to keep a paycheck. I missed my paycheck this month. How about you? How's the ice cream taste? People angry. They're angry about that kind of stuff. And they've never protested, but they really feel like they're feeling beat down. And they're called, and Bill Maher, who's supposed to be this centrist, or Jake Tapper, who's this quote-unquote centrist, calling them flyover country, people, people who are in the way. You build roads around their communities so you don't have to talk to them. You build McDonald's at exits so you don't have to go to see their small businesses if you're feeling a little hungry, or to go to their gas stations. You build the world so you can avoid them, and then you talk shit about them. Publicly. All the time. And for what? For what? For some political wins? Well, you've been poking this beast for a long time. And is it your just desserts to see them react in like a firecracker going off in the middle of a war, by the way? Like, this is pretty small potatoes. Sure, yeah, oh, it's the Capitol building, If BLM did it, would you have stopped them from going to the Capitol? Like, I heard Joe Scarborough saying that, if it was black people, they would have all been shot. There are plenty of black people there. Many black people there, many Koreans, many Chinese, plenty of ethnic minorities. There was a dude who made the entire group laugh because he walked up and I wish I got a video of this dude, it was so funny. He said, hey guys, you guys know what's going on? I come from Chicago and it sucked out there. These people done nothing for me. All I got was this. And he does this and he's got like just a row of gold teeth here and a row of gold teeth here. And he's like, this is all the government's ever done for me. And everybody just laughed because it was hilarious. But it's like, look, these people are there, and guess what? They didn't get shot. You guys didn't have a single sniper on that building. There was nobody there to prevent any real disaster. You are grandstanding to the extreme when you try to pull this stuff into race relations or into. And what is it? What is the goal here? As far as I can tell, it's to shut down people's ability to think. You're no longer allowed to think for yourself. You're no longer allowed to think like a conservative or like somebody who just wants to stop the babies from being murdered in women's wombs. Like, let's be honest to you. What is the this lady died coming in through a window, got shot in the neck, made a little bit of there's a tactical error there, and she lost her life as a result. Too bad, by the way. These are veterans who fought in wars to watch you strip away their livelihoods and their freedoms and the pathway for their children to grow up. And in this woman's case, her life is gone now. But let's be honest. If she was, let's say, 30 years younger and still inside her mom's womb, what did her life matter, right? Give me a break. Give me a break. Nobody wants to hear your grandstanding on people's graves so that you can get some political message across. That doesn't matter to anybody. And it sure is, and if that's what you're doing, it doesn't matter to you. Quit it. Quit it. There are people who deserve sympathy on both sides here. The police deserve a lot of sympathy because they were underprepared and maybe tactically underprepared by people who were supposed to be telling them what to do. Like when I looked at this girl, I could see her face through the police mask. She's just like loaded up with makeup on. I'm like, where did you find this kid? She's wearing makeup under her right. Like, she was not prepared to deal with people like this today. Why are you sending her by yourself? There's not a man behind her. Definitely not close enough to protect her from behind. Worst case scenario, what if there were people launching people with swords, just get behind the riot gear people and just stab them from behind? Like, what if they could have done that? You weren't prepared to handle that situation. Are you out of your minds? That is insane that you have underprepared these police officers for this situation. And it is insane that these Trump supporters have no idea what they're walking into in terms of how to protest, how to speak. Maybe what morals have we learned by watching documentaries about Martin Luther King? Like, they don't know what they're doing. Many of them don't even know that they're protesting. They're just sitting out there on the grass, eating lunch, listening to some guy in Uncle Sam costume play his ukulele on a speakerphone, saying, I'm proud to be American. What? What? Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, I had a little outrage moment. Maybe you can meme on it. But give me a break, guys. If you don't have mercy for these people, what the heck is wrong with you? But we're gonna release the Antifa members, right? We're gonna, they were in jail for blowing up police cars and burning down businesses, but you know what? We're just gonna release them. And it's expulsion for you Trump supporters. It's expulsion for you people who wanted to defend your freedom, who, by the way, had something to defend. Had something that they reasonably could defend here. And what? You conservatives take an opportunity to grandstand? I got some choice words for you. They begin, you can find them in the word fire truck. You. Okay? Mitch McConnell. Okay, Ted Cruz. Okay, all you guys who are grandstanding on this opportunity to condemn these people who you will not talk to. You'll go on your Daily Wire shows and do those interviews and say, man, what a horrible thing that happened here. All that violence! Condemning violence! Wow, what a middle of the road pathway to take there. Wow, what a thing to defend that. No violence. okay, sure, we can condemn violence. Sure, you can condemn violence if you want to. You can condemn violence. And you can condemn horrible leadership. And by the way, Trump, you don't have an excuse here either. Where the heck were you when things were getting tense? Maybe you thought you could communicate it on Twitter or whatever, but come on, they're gonna censor you. You should know better. Why weren't you down at the congressional building with the speakerphone yourself saying, hey everybody, hey, this is what we want. You're on the rotunda now, just come back. They really, we gotta pull everything back, guys, okay? Let this thing happen, not going into the building. Where are you, Trump? Come on, man. You deserve this loss, okay? You really do. Where is your leadership? Like, you told people to go there, and they went. You should have figured that out. Maybe you should have maybe you were being fed information that people were telling you. I don't know what was going on. Maybe you would have done the right thing had you had better information, but where's the hunch there? Like, come on, man. Have some leadership. Have some focus. And I'm not saying the people who died, a lot of the blood is on their own hands. Let's be honest. There are people who got injured because they were stupid. Like, they were stupid. People climbing up the side of the scaffolding. I saw a woman climbing up this, there's 3 people, sitting on a step, and it's very tight. It's very tight there. And to get around those people, they're climbing up the railing. And there's a woman in high heels climbing on the railing trying to get further up. I'm like, how do you, if not for some people who pulled you off, and people who pulled you to the other side, you would have fallen. Alright, yeah, there are people who are gonna get themselves injured by acting like monkeys. Literally acting like monkeys. And that's not a racial pejorative. You're literally climbing on scaffolding like a monkey. You're out of your mind, okay? And sure, there are people yeah, you can do it! What do they say when you fall and break your neck? Come on! There's some common sense to be had here, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Mm-hmm. What do we do? What do we do other than say, yeah, we need to have mercy for people who made mistakes that day, but justice gets served for no one. Because as far as we know, there's still the fraud election talk, that's out the window. Facebook and YouTube have said that they're putting strikes on videos who still talk about fraud, who say, there's still fraud out there, because there is, by the way. These questions are still unanswered, but whatever. Trump supporters did more than they should have. Aw, too bad. No protective measures by the government to stop them, by the way. Or if they were pathetic measures. But those concussion grenades, let's be honest. I wiped that stuff off after the 4th one. I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting used to this sound now. I'm getting used to it, whatever. Pepper spray, my eyes! Somebody pour some water on you, and about 30 minutes later, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling okay.
What positive action can we take going forward out of this?
Positive action you can take, folks. Mercy. Have mercy for your fellow man. There are people, say sorry once in a while. If there's a police officer who hit a dude in the face with a baton, and he walked back, and that dude tried to rush the police officer, I grabbed him and I tried to hold him back. This dude was huge. I couldn't hold him back by myself, and he was just like, maybe I'm gonna hit this police officer. And I was like, that's not the way. Don't do it. Don't attack him, please, God. Don't attack the man. Don't attack the police officer. And the police officer was just like, he's gonna come and hit me again. And the guy eventually shook himself off and walked back. You need to be a voice of reason and a voice of mercy for people. As far as justice for the election, it's passed. Trump has already conceded at this point. They're ready to move on with the Joe Biden presidency and all this other stuff. Our opportunity to see justice in that department is gone. All you can do now is be merciful to people. Be loving to people. Show them that you actually care about them. Tell people their ideas are important. Tell people who have grievances that they can be heard out. I imagine you would have had half the following if the Supreme Court took up a case. If if any institution didn't kick the can down the road so that they could blame, so that instead of taking the blame for themselves, they can blame it on the American people. You could have done that. I'm sorry, I know I'm giving you guys a lot of reasons to be angry at the institutions right now, but you got to be merciful there. And for those of you who are in these institutions of power, you, like, Mama Bear was angry. You poked Mama Bear, and maybe intentionally you did it, who was trying to protect her baby cub and was willing to die for it. And you happen to be a space marine who lives on a space station and can orbitally nuke Mama Bear from orbit. And you fuckers, by the way, I'll censor that. I'll beep it. If you push the button to destroy them, if you're saying, oh, that minor annoyance from that position, oh, okay. Expel all the Trump supporters, expel them all. We can do that because we're in institutional powers. We can rage bait the media. We can get all this stuff going so that we can destroy all these people's lives. We can ruin the lives of Americans, of veterans who fought in wars, saw their brothers and sisters die for you, so that you could nuke them from orbit today. Shame on you Republicans. Shame on you Democrats if you proceed in that kind of behavior.
So, wrap up your thoughts in one final sentence. Give your viewers one sentence
Sure.
that really sums up your thoughts. And you can take a second if you want to think of it.
Okay, yeah. One sentence. Just get one sentence. Okay. People in this country who believe in freedom, who believe in God, and believe in righteousness are about to be slapped in the face so unbelievably hard it appears. Be willing and able to turn the other cheek in this case. You're about to be persecuted. You're about to be hung from crosses. Be willing to turn the other cheek. How's that?
That's good.
Okay.
I like you.
I like you too.